Hey everyone, Pablo here and welcome to a new video. This one again is very exciting. My second collab ever with David. Say hi, David.
Hi everybody, I'm David Decero.
The way that we originally thought about doing this video was to read, we were going to read The Blade itself in February, but we didn't quite manage to do that. But it's fine because we both managed to read half of the book, so we're going to do like a mid-book review thing. The title is not very fixed, but that's the main concept of the video. Basically, we're going to divide these, we're going to do two videos. Part one will be my channel, and we're just going to do a general thoughts, non-spoilery. We'll go, like, we jump and we'll say our thoughts about the characters, about the plot, and all that. And then we're going to do a second part where we'll go to David's channel, and then we'll do like a spoilery discussion and like a predictions of what we're expecting on the second half of the book. So stick around for that. Cool. So, do you have any burning thoughts off the top of your head you want to share?
Burning thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything. Okay. Yeah. So my initial thought, like I believe I've said this in Discord too, is that Joe Abercrombie reminds me of Quentin Tarantino. Like the way he just focuses on character, and I feel like without thinking too much about the overarching plot, we really just spend a lot of time getting to know these characters, and they're really cool and interesting characters, so I don't mind at all. I think that's been the first thing that immediately comes to mind when I'm reading The Blade itself.
That is such a good comment as well. I was laughing for a while after you said that in the Discord. I forgot to mention we started doing this as a buddy read, so we've been sort of exchanging thoughts over in my Discord. But yeah, it was such a clever comment, and it is like that. It is, you're thrown into sort of like scenario, which it doesn't really matter where they are. You just want to see the interactions with the characters, and that is such. It's very refreshing coming from like a very plot-centered book. The last book I read was, what was it? Oh my god, I think it was Rhythm of War. So it was like a very plot-heavy book. Again, without any spoilers.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, the one thing that it has struck me is how witty the dialogue is. It's so clever, the exchange. I will probably go on to like specific examples later on in your video, but it's the way that Abercrombie writes characters is like it's well paced. It's good, like it's got comedic timing as well. It's really it's flawless. I still haven't found a thing about the character, like the character work. I still haven't found something that grinds. It's really good.
Yeah, and it's almost, I'm hesitant to say it's so refreshing from going from Malazan, like Gardens of the Moon,
right,
to this, but Gardens of the Moon is a book where every single line I feel like has so many different meanings, and you want to like slowly go, where this one you can just read through it. It's so much more readable, if that's a word.
Yeah.
It's smooth.
Yeah, it flows so well. It makes me I remember reading Abercrombie's biography and how he first sort of started writing a very pompous and like very derivative of Tolkien, and it didn't quite land. And I think it was like a section where he gave the book to his mum, and his mum was like, "Do you really think this is good?" Which is like the harshest critique you could. Oh, there it goes.
Bye, AirPod. I'm still getting used to wearing these.
It does take some time. Try working out in the gym and then banging it out of the way, and just it flies about.
Imagine. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's good. What was I saying? Oh yeah, his mom said, "This is really not that good," and he went back, reflected, and said, "All right, cut the fat, straight to the point," and it shows. It shows how it's like so polished and so sharp.
Definitely, it's funny that you mentioned that because I know grimdark in general, anything that usually gets thrown into the category of grimdark is typically just a derivative or somebody just trying to change what the typical fantasy story is. You know, taking a Tolkien and being like, what if they all didn't have the heart of like Frodo or Sam? You know, what if they were terrible people and this horrible thing happens to their world and you combine, you know, sketchy people with a bad situation. And so it makes sense that he's, you know, I mean, his Twitter handle is Lord Grimdark, I believe.
Yeah.
So
which is, by the way,
yeah. And then the other thing about his mom, if only we can all have mothers like that to give us that brutal honesty, because I can write some stuff and give it to my mom. She'll be like, oh, that's great. And I'll be like, that's not helpful. Like, cool. I mean, thanks. But for his mom to be like, no, what is this? And then him being like, okay, I need to change some things. Let's trim the fat. Let's, you know, get after it.
That's so, it's really good to have someone that sort of direct. Definitely. The one thing, again, I suppose is like, I haven't read much. I think this is my actual first grimdark that I've read. And the one thing I can notice is normally, even that a book doesn't have to be the classic good times and bad, you know, good guys and bad guys. Like, but you can see an overarching. So these are sort of like the good guys, and these are sort of like the bad guys. In this book, everyone is like grey. You know, you don't really know who's bad or who's good. Like, everyone.
Especially when you consider somebody like Glotka. Like, the man is a torturer. Like, he tortures people, and you root for him. Like, it's just to put you in that position is such a mind, if you will. Yeah.
So basically, it's really good to see something that is completely like ambiguous, and it helps you sort of focus in like the character itself, not their motives, because you don't really know what their motives are. You could see where they're going, but it's more of their personality and the way that they see the world through their eyes, and that is like being able to manage to do that is amazing. I
think that's a great point, because a lot of times, I mean, the motivation's really easy to see. You know, here's a person with a good heart, the world is in distress, they need to save the world, they need to save their family, blah blah blah, etc. You know, morally gray stories like this, like Logan, what does he care about? What does he have left to give a shit about? You know,
I think the only thing he cares about is being alive.
Yeah, you have to be reasonable about these things.
Yeah.
And the same with the Glotka. Like, what does he have left? You know, and so it's really interesting trying to see and understand where these people are coming from. And Joe Abercrombie does such a good job painting a picture of what their daily life is like, how chaotic is their current situation. And then eventually you can tell slowly in the background there's threads of he's starting to bring the big bad is starting to come. And then, but that's not important. That's so shoved far in the background.
It's like
we're zeroed in on the characters right now, the point of view characters, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and like related to what you just said about Glockter, and again without getting into spoilers, I think everyone knows that, you know, he's a torturer, he's a cripple, and someone that has lost so much is very it allows you to play with fear, because what is there left for them to lose? Like, you don't know what they're going to do, because they can do anything, because they don't really care that much, because they faced something that is worse than death itself. And I think that's why Glockter is such a powerful character. That's why I like him so much. Yeah,
I think it's great if people try to threaten him or anything even like that, the thoughts that play in his head as you read them. He's like,
mate, do you even know me? Do you like...
He's like, all right, bet. Okay, what are you going to do to me? Great. We'll talk a little bit about the world building and just the kind of societies that they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see the difference between the Northmen and the city itself. I believe the main city, it's called the I can't say
The Agriont.
That looks really nice from the outside, but then once you get in, that's where all the politicking happens, all the scheming behind the scenes, all the people who will smile in front of your face but stab you behind the back. And you have, the royalty and the working class and the poor who are getting just the worst of it. But then up north, it's just, you have, savages and barbarians, and they're all kind of just on the same level. They're just trying to survive for the most part, and they're constantly at war with each other, and just seeing those two societies, and they're going to come together. And we spend a lot of time with each of them, and I think that's really cool. And it's halfway through the book, it's really well developed.
Yeah. I fully agree, and I can see there is a lot of inspiration pulling from the UK itself. There is a massive north and south divide here. You can see it in A Song of Ice and Fire, because for those that don't sort of know the layout of the UK, there is a lot of the biggest part of the population is concentrated in the south, and the seat of government is in the south, and the north is a very, very big area, almost twice as big as the south, and it's been traditionally regarded as the barbarians of the north, the people that are not civilized, and I think that he's pulling from there.
I just say. That makes me really glad that I'm reading this with you, because as somebody who has only lived in California, I had no idea. I had no idea it was like that. I just, I don't want to say all the rumors or all the stereotypes about Americans being bad at geography and things like that are true, but that's something
I don't know anything about California, so
but it makes sense because that's where he's from, Joe Abercrombie, and so that's something. That's a really cool thing that I wouldn't have picked up on.
Yeah, definitely, and it's the north. Sort of in the books, it's basically Yorkshire. Yorkshire is this part of the like a region in the UK, and it's massive. And then the south, London is a massive city, and then all of the south is like the rich area, and it's been like that for centuries. And without getting into too of a tangent, because from my perspective, I'm a medical student, I love medicine, that north-south divide, also you can see it in healthcare, and you can see it, I think the life expectancy in the north is around 65, 70, and in the south is up to 80. And within the same country, within the same tiny island, because in comparison is a tiny island, to see that sort of stark divide is mind-blowing. So I think Abercrombie is pulling from that a bit, which is fine. He does it well.
And not to get completely off topic, and you don't even have to put this part in if you don't, but just so in California, it's so different, because you can have one street where all the houses are like $1 million houses, and they're basically rich people, and then a couple streets over, people who are working class, or even struggling more than that, who are on the verge of being homeless, and you have everybody's just kind of smashed together all around the same area. So it's a very different experience, I guess. But I did notice when he was talking about having a king and things like that, it immediately made me think, this is from him growing up in England, things like that. But
and
I'm not completely get totally off topic and
it's good. It's
take
good.
this somewhere else.
No, it's good. And even the politics, the union, the United Kingdom is a union. But all the parallelisms that are, I think that I really like seeing a lot of history, like a book anchored in history, because, it gives it credibility. I think that's why I like seeing that kind of thing. And also, not completely, but a bit different. He has mentioned that he doesn't like the medieval sandbox. Always. No time, there is a stagnant kind of world, and you can see the hints of transformation. You can see the hints of moving away from a feudal system and going into a different, again, no spoilers, but you can see the tiny hints of a shift of the status quo, and I think that's seeing that in 250 pages that we've read is really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about just reading half of it so far is we can really stop and take a moment to focus on how well and slowly he's brought. You can tell, like, the climax is lurking. There's threads of it, there's tiny little bits of it, and it's lurking, and it's slowly being brought along, and you can tell, like, shit's about to hit the fan. Like, it's going down eventually. It's all going to come together. So we've been chilling, just watching all these characters and their interesting lives and things like that. But it's coming.
Yeah, that is by far. I think that is by far the best part of having multiple POVs and slowly seeing how they go on about their lives, and then but slowly but steadily how they come together and at one point they'll interact with each other. And it being Abercrombie, being the master of character he is, I'm really excited to see certain characters interact.
Not to completely dive back just into genre, but I know for a long time a lot of people, because I really love the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence, and people have constantly been saying, you need to read The Blade itself. You need to read The Blade itself. That is really well written grimdark. And I've kind of been putting it off for a while because I'm like, oh man, I really love like The Prince of Thorns. And if people, like, I know Daniel Green hated The Prince of Thorns, but he loved The Blade itself. And so I was like, is this something very different? But I have to say what everybody else says. If you're a fan of grimdark, you will love this story. Like, this is going to engage you. This is going to give you what you're looking for in that genre. A good place to start. Oh, definitely.
We haven't quite talked about a plot, but there isn't really, like, you can see there is a plot and you can see things coming, but it's not really a focus, and you don't really want to know about the plot that much. You want to see what the characters are doing. I don't know if you found it different.
No, I agree. It seems like the plot is something that is coming once we've already completely immersed ourselves in this world, then we'll get the plot. Right now, we're just enjoying the characters, and I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but it feels like a Tarantino movie where you're going through where it's like, you don't really need to pay attention to the plot because the characters are so interesting and they're definitely driving the story. But you could tell, as far as a plot, how could we describe it early on? I mean, everybody has a different story, right? Yeah. So you have Glotka, basically his story, and we'll keep it vague just not to spoil anything, but his story is basically he tortures people and he questions them. He works for the government, he goes out there and he's hunting down people, and he's kind of leading to a bigger and bigger story, I guess you would say, or a bigger and bigger cover up. He's working his way higher and higher into more important people, and
his part of the Inquisition, and as someone that is Spanish, I am quite familiar with what an Inquisition is.
Very much a mutt, but I'm also part Spanish.
There you go.
But yeah, that's again off topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's part of the Inquisition. His storyline is just questioning people. Yeah. And then you have Logan, who is a warrior, barbarian, just a survivor. Out in the north, just surviving, and that's he's just surviving.
I think like that defines the plot for a lot. Just stay above death, and then
you have Giselle, who is. I know you haven't read this one, but Mark Lawrence also wrote a trilogy that starts with The Prince of Fools, and if you've read The Prince of Fools, this is a lot like Jalin. There's a character called Jalin who's like a nobility, and he doesn't really care about anybody but himself, and he reminds me a lot of that. But his story, you can tell, it's a very personal. He just wants the accolades, he wants the fame. He doesn't really care about other people. For himself and thinking, like, what can make me look good? So his story, halfway through it, without it's not really a major spoiler, his storyline is he's getting ready for a fight, basically.
Contest.
And he's training for that, a contest. Yeah. And so that's it, where his storyline. So they're so different.
But he manages to sort of get the story, mold the story in a way that you can see how they eventually will intertwine. And we've seen connections already. And another thing that I really liked is the way that he's pacing the revealing of different different parts of the story, like not parts of the story, like the backstory of characters, and how there is more connections between characters that you would realize at first. And
no, definitely.
Yeah, again, about POV, I really like having like a few, maybe 2-3 POVs where the story is centered, and then pulling back and seeing someone completely different in another part of the world. And it's a good interlude. And I know went German there for some reason.
So as far as prose goes, I hate how that rhymes. As far as prose goes,
bars.
He's definitely a more literal writer, meaning it's that transparency, right? The focus is not really on his prose. It's not someone like where, if you read Anna Smith Spark, she has really poetic prose, and that's part of setting the tone and all that. But with Joe Abercrombie, the total focus is on characters and how they relate to the world and what's going on with them. He's not going to distract you with flowery prose in any way. It's going to stay out of the way. It's going to be nice and clean, and just it really helps with the pace. I think keeps things smooth.
Yeah, it reminded me of when I was reading back in high school. I was sort of studying the literary movements of the 18th century, and how realism eventually, there is like a subgenre of realism called naturalism, which is very visceral, very there is like, it's visceral, and it's almost focused on like bodily fluids. Like it's not like, it's very raw, and it's like blood, and there's like aggression, and I think there's a lot of this in the book, which is good. Like it reminds you, well, they're humans, they're animals, they're just, yeah.
And to add on to that, I mean, it's almost casual the way the blood and the more visceral moments are wrapped in, especially with the character like Glotka. He literally tortures people, and they talk about it, and it's not overly dramatic. It's very matter of fact. This is what's happening. Then this, and then this, and you're just like, he's pretty casual about that.
I think it's tasteful though, because it doesn't veer into like torture porn. It is not like reveling in violence. It's, well, this is it. I break someone's finger, and it's done. Like what is there to say? Yeah,
just a man at work, you know.
And that is so good. That is really good. But yeah, I think the way I compare books, that my reference is always Name of the Wind. I don't know if you've read it. Patrick Rothfuss has such a polished style and is very lyrical. So that's sort of my benchmark to compare. And this is not it, but it's not a criticism. I think it fits the tone of the story, and it's very witty. I keep saying it. It's very witty. It's very very sharp. The humor that he uses, and the comedic timing. I will talk again more later on spoilers, but there's some lines that it's like, oh man, it bites, and it's really good.
He's a clever dude. He's a clever man.
Yeah,
that's one thing too. We could definitely. I would guess a selling point to this book. The comedy is underrated. Not enough people talk about how funny this story is. Like the character, even Logan Ninefield, like it's just his view on life sometimes. Like, okay, I believe it's the first chapter or one of the first, it's very early on, but he's in a really bad situation. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how happy he is to have his pot. And like, today's been a great day. And it's like, a lot of bad stuff has happened to this man on this day. And he's like, today's, like, it's a great day. I got my pot. And it's just like, yes. I like the mentality, but it also makes you laugh.
Positivity.
Yeah, it's like the comedy is snuck into these, and that it's even more genius when you think that this is character development. The comedy is interwoven into who these characters are, which is great on another level.
So if you like very sharp, very witty, like to the point dialogue, character-centered books, pick this one up. Trigger warning: it's quite visceral. It's graphic. It doesn't dilly-dally on like the most dark, like the darkest aspects of humankind. So, something to bear in mind. My recommendation is that you do read it. It's really, really good. For now, I don't see it disappointing me.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't see this. We're halfway through. I would be shocked if the ending is just crap and it's just like, well, and everything sucks after that.
It has to be like, it was all a dream, you know, that kind of ending.
Yeah, exactly. Just we turned to the next page and it's just like, oh, it was all a dream. Now we go back to their normal life of being like, I don't know, just a regular person in their day-to-day job.
Or it's like, oh yeah, and there's aliens, you know, that kind of thing.
Like aliens and cowboys invade. And
oh my god, that movie is such a mind. Who said, let's put, you know, cowboys? Yeah, aliens. Let's put them together.
Cowboys and aliens. Let's do it. And then if he
oh my god, that title
takes a weird spin.
I can just imagine like the meeting in Hollywood. Yeah, so you know, cowboys. You know, the typical Western. Aliens.
Boom.
And that's the title. Cowboys and done. And get the dude that does the 007. Yeah, that one. Yeah, let's do it.
Unless it takes some ridiculous turn, it's looking really good. And I would highly recommend, any fans of Grimdark, you want to pick this up for sure.
So that is it for this video. If you want to carry on, and you have to now. It's a contract, a binding contract. You started this video, you're going to have to carry on with the next one. It is how things work. Yeah, we're going to do like a spoilery discussion and predictions on David's channel. If you do one thing today, is checking his channel. Really good content. And I will see you in the next one.